We now have a quorum, and I would like to call this meeting to order. It is the April 6th Board of Zoning Appeals for Monroe County. And Ms. Nestor Jelen, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Margaret Clemens,
Here.
Skip Daly,
Present.
Guy Loftman,
Here.
Dee Owens,
Here.
and we do not have a fifth member since that is currently vacant.
Okay, we do have a new member, and Mr. Guy Loftman has agreed to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so the first thing, order of business, is to swear you in to uphold the rules and the ethics of our office. So if you would please raise your right hand and read the oath of office.
I will. I, Guy Loftman, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Indiana, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform my duties as a Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals member according to the law and to the best of my skill and ability.
Oh,
The 6th day of April, 2022.
thank you, Mr. Loftman. If you would be so kind as to sign it, then we will give it to the planning office so they can keep it on file. Thank you so much, and welcome. Welcome to our Board of Zoning Appeals. Now that these two business items are completed, Ms. Nestor Jelen, would you please introduce the evidence?
Sure. I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Okay, and I'd like to move approval of the evidence. And would you please call the roll?
Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, and if one of my colleagues would please make a motion to approve tonight's agenda, I'd be so grateful.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
And just a friendly amendment to the agenda for administrative items. If we can add the election of a new chair and I
Okay.
believe vice chair, since Mary Beth was the chair and she's no longer on the BZA. And then I'd also like to introduce a new planner that we have.
Okay, wonderful. So are those amendments?
I second.
Okay.
Okay,
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
yes?
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and the last item of our business before we get started with administrative business is approval of the minutes. If you could either move to approve all of them collectively or individually. So I will look to my colleague. I don't know if we have a quorum because Guy wasn't here serving on.
I can't, if I could have a point of order, I was not present either for any of those minutes, so I'm not comfortable voting on minutes for which I wasn't present.
I would like to make a motion to table the approval of these minutes until we resolve. I suspect that will be at our May meeting.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think we need to vote. I think we can just vote to
Okay.
approve them at the next meeting.
Okay, well, we're moving to the administrative business section of our meeting, and I would be so delighted if you would kindly introduce your new colleague.
Yes, so we have Daniel Brown in the audience. He's our newest planner too, and he started with us about a month ago. So we're excited to have Daniel. He comes to us from most recently Nashville, Tennessee, but his alma mater is in Georgia. So we're excited to have him, and he's been a great asset to the office so far. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Welcome, Daniel. We appreciate having you join us, and it's nice to meet you again. And I'd like to recognize that Ms. Nestor Jelen has been promoted to the position of Director of the Planning Department, and we congratulate you. And we look forward to your continued excellent service for Monroe County Planning. And we know that the excellent staff that you have will do everything to make us all successful in everything we try to do. So congratulations.
Thank you. And
Yes.
thank you to all
Yay.
for serving. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The next item then would be the election of the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And if there is a motion on who would like to serve, or if anybody would like to serve, please say so now.
Well, I want to nominate you.
Second,
Second,
So let
Okay,
it be done.
so I would humbly serve if I am elected.
Okay, let me go ahead and call the roll on Margaret as the chair. Dee Owens,
yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Skip Daly,
Absolutely.
Guy Loftman,
yes.
Oh,
and I believe, Margaret, you were the vice chair prior.
yes,
Is
so
that
we need a
correct?
vice chair. Is there someone who would like to serve as vice chair tonight? I would like to nominate Skip Daly.
I'll second that.
Okay, I will call the roll. Margaret Clemens,
Nominated. I will not
Yes.
run. No.
Skip Daly,
Sure.
Yourself.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, I should have called you before the meeting, but that was kind of short notice with Mary Beth not able to make it. Okay, so the first item, the first unamended item on the agenda is item 1, ADR 21-3. And this is findings of fact for ADR 21-3 at 5100 South Victor Pike. And is that something that you will present, Ann or Jackie?
And may I, Madam
Yes.
Chair, Madam
Yes.
President?
Yeah.
This is a matter in which I filed documents with the Plan Commission concerning the substance of it.
Yes.
Therefore, it appears to me I should recuse myself and hereby recuse myself from any consideration. But I will remain physically present to preserve the the quorum,
Thank you very
if that's
much.
appropriate.
That would be is that suitable, Mr. Schilling?
Seek council's advice.
Yeah, the law says that 50% of the board members have to be present.
It doesn't say they can't recuse.
And you meet that with Guy's presence here. You have your quorum with the electronic participation and the two physically present who are able to vote. So I would say it's probably okay, although this is a new rule and there just hasn't been any further guidance on that.
Yes.
Well, we'll take yours.
I would say let her fly and
Yes. Let's see how this turns out and
Yeah.
I mean, in order to do the business of the county and the business of the Board of Zoning Appeals, we do have to make these kinds of considerations at as we go forward. And just so long as you don't weigh in on the substance of the issues right now, but your presence is welcome because we really value you in order to maintain the quorum. So thank you. And
Nice to feel important.
thank you. So Ms. Nestor Jelen.
Okay, and tech services, if you wouldn't mind promoting my username to panelists, just so I can share my screen, that would be helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so included in the packet, you'll find the findings of fact that we put together for the case ADR 21-3. I believe that Margaret, Skip, and Dee were present for those, that meeting, and as well as Vicky Sorensen and Mary Beth Kazmarchuk. And those two members are no longer, oh, actually it was Bernie Garitas, wasn't it? So we have a few members that are no longer present on the Board of Zoning Appeals. But the findings of fact are put together by the legal department to verify how the vote was taken, and it's solidifying that vote that you have already taken back in December. So I'm not sure if we have a quorum enough to vote on this tonight, but I'd be happy to go through any of the findings if you had questions on it, or if you want to go through anything.
Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, with the exception of Mr. Loftman, have questions for staff on this item? It's something we have discussed before and voted on before.
No, I don't have any.
I have a question. Can you put up the screen that shows how people voted in the
Sure.
previous?
Yes.
I don't see that, and I'm sure it's here and I'm missing it.
So Mary Beth Kazmarchuk, Margaret Clements, and Vicky Sorensen voted to
That's what I-
affirm, and Bernie Garitas, Skip Daly voted no.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Daly?
Not at this time.
Well, I'd like to ask members of the public if you would like to weigh in on this particular case. If so, please raise your hand, those members who are physically present here. And I also would like to invite the people online on Zoom or who are calling in to raise your virtual hand on Zoom or to press *9 on the telephone to indicate that you would like to speak concerning this matter. And I don't see that anyone has expressed an intention to speak. And so we come back to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for a motion. And our options are to affirm the director's determination with and we could also affirm it with the development of review conditions in the staff report, or we could delegate to the secretary, continue to the next meeting, or some other action. So if members of the Board of Zoning Appeals would like to make a motion, and if none, I'll make a motion. And that would be to affirm the director's decision, the director's previous decision, and to as we had discussed before. So that is my motion. If there is another member of the Board of Zoning Appeals who would like to second that, we could.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay, and Mr. Schilling, do you want to clarify the vote, or do you want me to clarify the vote of it? It's a vote to approve the findings of
Yes.
fact for
Yes.
case ADR-21-3. No, that's
Sorry.
okay, I had the voting sheet up. Okay, so Margaret Clemens made the motion.
So it's the
Dee
same,
Owens made the
it's the
second.
same motion from December, correct?
Well, it's just, the motion is, do these, do you approve the entry of these findings that support the board's earlier decision? So the decision has already been made.
Correct.
Okay, so this is the factual and legal basis for that decision.
So there was a majority decision to affirm the director's decision, and that carried. Now, this is
Correct.
just to affirm that prior board decision.
Yeah, technically, it's just to list the facts and the conclusions of law that caused the board to make that prior decision.
Yes.
All right. Yes.
Into the formal record.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the roll.
Okay,
Margaret Clemens.
yes.
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Guy Loftman recuses himself.
Recused.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes 3-0,
Okay.
3-0-1.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to old business. And this is item CDU 21-6. And this is Good Road General Contractor Rural Conditional Use concerning 5.05 plus or minus acre parcel in Richland Township, Section 20 at 3350 North Starnes Road. And Ms. Casilius, if you would be so kind as to present this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. So we've heard this before, I believe at the February meeting, I believe. So this is a conditional use request for the rural general contractor. So a conditional use is by right if they can meet the conditions laid out under the conditional use chapter of the zoning ordinance. There were some gaps in meeting the requirements. So we're going to go through those, and we believe they've all been met now. So I will pull those up here shortly. So this property is located in Richland Township. You can see on the left. On the right is a pictometry photo showing the currently 2 separate legal lots of record. One which has the barn on it to the north and a residential home and garage farther to the south. So here is their previous site plan and letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals requesting this conditional use. So the conditional uses, first requirement was that the site has a minimum lot size of 5 acres. They currently meet that. Under, let's see, skip one more. So here, the requirement of number B, which is the presence of a primary residence on the property is required, and that the owner operator records an affidavit and commitment stating that they will reside in the property full time. So staff, jumping ahead a little bit, staff is recommending approval with conditions. So I've laid out the conditions here that are relevant that would then fulfill the next 2 requirements, so B and C. So the first condition is that the lots are legally combined using language from chapter 804, which states for planning and zoning purposes, they are combined. So it will go from 1 buildable lot or 2 buildable lots to 1, both of which are already developed. So that fulfills B. Second condition is recording that affidavit. So that's already required. So once they record that affidavit that they'll reside full-time on the property, B will be met. Number C requirement of the conditional use. Let's see, it's county employees. Is also met through condition 1. So with an updated site plan, we are able to show that, let's see, one more, that they meet the requirement for screening of outdoor storage or just the entire storage area. So they are showing screening shown in a blue. This here is a fence line in blue, and there will be a line of trees. They've also talked about an addition, which would be allowed and would not count towards the 100 by 100 outdoor storage area that's required. The last requirement was originally that outdoor storage may not include green fill waste. So the bottom right photo had shown some green fill that was confirmed by the petitioner that it was not green fill, that it was being used for their residential use and residential heating on the site. So that is now met. So overall, staff recommends approval of the conditional use petition for the general contractor rural use of Chapter 802 and 813 with the following conditions to be met by October 6, 2022, which is to, one, combine both properties for planning and zoning purposes using the language of Chapter 804. Number two, record that affidavit stating that they will reside on the property full-time. Three, there were some requirements under their right-of-way permit, so to complete those. And four, that the petitioner meets their site plan requirements as they've shown in Exhibit 2. So to fulfill what they've shown, the screening and fencing, trees, et cetera. Does anybody on the board have questions?
Did the petitioner seem amenable to the conditions?
Yes, we met, so from the first Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, we did have a meeting after that with them and the planning staff. So we worked through some of the areas that were lacking. So they went ahead and provided us documentation that they would be meeting and agreed to all the conditions of the conditional use. They've updated their site plan. We had some concerns originally about meeting that 100 by 100, so they've adapted. And so all of these shown really are just requirements of that conditional use, so they do agree to that. They did propose a longer time frame for meeting these conditions.
And
but
you said October 6th?
Staff is recommending a shorter time frame of October 6th, yes.
What was the rationale for the shorter time frame?
This site is currently enforcement of use that is not prohibited or not permitted in the zoning. So since we're pursuing this, we wanted to see a shorter time frame because this site will technically stay in enforcement until these conditions are met.
And the joining of the properties, the logistics can feasibly happen in that time frame?
Yes, they can.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Do other members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Ms. Crecelius?
Well, this is sort of a background question. The petitioners are filing an affidavit that they'll reside on the property. If they sell the property 3 years from now, does the new owner have to live there if they want to be a contractor, or what happens when there's a change of ownership?
Sure. So if somebody else were to buy it and they weren't a contractor, just be a residential home. But if they wanted to start something that fell under that contracting business, they would be able to, as long as they also resided there as well.
But if you wanted to move your contracting business there and not live there, you'd be in violation. And this wouldn't apply to them. They wouldn't be in compliance if they carried on a contractor business without living there.
Correct.
Great. I just wanted to make sure I had the flow correct. Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Loftman. Ms. Owens, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to see if Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad are here and if they would like to address the Board of Zoning Appeals. And if so, would you come up to the lectern and sign in and then raise your right hand and I'll swear you in.
Yeah.
And you both will speak? Is that?
Yes.
So
I believe so.
both of you, please sign in and raise your right hand. And you'll have 15 minutes total to address the Board of Zoning Appeals and the planning staff. So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Obviously, I'm Glenn, current owner. And the reason we're asking for additional time, the 6 months, obviously, if you're trying to do anything to add on to our covered area, which I was correct in my first meeting, whenever I stated that it is covered area, outdoor storage is that's the 10,000 square feet. I was correct. And I want that noted also, because I felt like you tore me up and the lack of your knowledge didn't portray the aspect that I've done the research and we're doing our part. We are actively working with Ann, trying to do our part. And I appreciate Skip for stepping in because I felt like you guys were willing to deny us right away without somebody stepping in and intervening that this could be handled. So I do appreciate that. Like I said, we're asking for more time because it takes time to do anything, especially with building materials, labor restrictions, or anything else. Obviously, we can get most of that done within the 6-month time period that they're asking for. But if that additional area that's needed for indoor storage, that's going to be a real tight constraint. And I know that other contractors that have been granted this variance have been granted 1 year from date of approval. So for us to ask for less than that, I think that's showing a little bit of favoritism, whether it's us or anybody else. Like I said, I know for a fact that it has been 1 year from date of approval, and you guys can go back to your January meetings and look through it. So I feel like that should be granted to each and every one of us if that's going to be the steadfast approach. Giving people time to do the things necessary. We're not trying to evade anybody. You can speak with Ann about that. We've answered any questions. We've spoke with her in a timely manner, trying to present and making sure that we're under compliance. So whenever we ask for that, I believe that should be something that definitely should be held accountable. The ability to put our properties together limits us in the near future. So us having to join our properties is, well, more than the taxation of the entire property, all as one residential versus what the current zoning is for our property. That does affect everybody. And whether or not we choose to do anything with the appropriate, I mean, we're gonna have to do whatever you guys tell us. I mean, that's kind of the point where we're at, is that you make decisions that are affecting everybody's livelihood in our household. Monroe County is the most difficult place to operate a business. And I hope that you guys take consideration of that every single day that you're up here in this board, that you know that you're affecting people and how hard it really is in this county. And I just want to take my time to say that it is difficult being an owner and trying to do the right thing. We have several other companies, and I'm not going to be like the company that turned me in, but there's other companies out doing other things that are definitely way worse than what we have going on in a private held property. So just the consideration and knowing that things happen for a reason, and I get that. And we are here to do our part, and we want Monroe County to continue to grow. But I also want, an aspect of knowing that these decisions are affecting people's lives. And I hope that you guys take that in consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goodroad. Ms. Goodroad has.
I don't think he left anything to say.
Could you pull the mic down?
I don't think he left anything for me to say, but I did majority of the paperwork on this, so I requested the time. When we met with Ann, she said, give yourself enough time. I mean, he works sometimes 7 days a week. So, having the time to do this stuff on our property outside of his business is going to take time. But we were told, give yourself enough time, put a reasonable amount of time on there. We don't want to do 6 months and then come to October and we don't have the things done, and then we're not in compliance again. So we are trying to be reasonable. We're not just asking for years to get it done.
Yes. Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad?
You discussed a quote unquote reasonable amount of time. What is a reasonable amount of time in your?
We had just asked for 1 year from the date of approval. So we didn't even know when this would be approved. So we just said 1 year from date of approval, but most of those could be done sooner rather than later. But getting permits and getting, the properties joined, we didn't have any idea how long those things would take.
Do you have any further questions for Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad?
The 1 year time frame that you're requesting, is that based on estimates? Is that based on quotes that you have for work, or are you doing the work on your own? I'm trying to understand
Well, we,
where, I'm trying to understand if a year is just an arbitrary number, or if it's a feel-good number, or if it's a realistic number.
I think it was a comfortable number, so that it didn't feel like you were under a gun to get it done. But it's gonna be concreting so many feet of the driveway, putting up fence, planting those trees, getting things moved, maybe in addition to the barn. So it's a lot of moving parts, can all be done. And I think it would take, I personally think it would take more than 6 months to get all the things done. And there's cost. I mean, this thing alone has cost us thousands of dollars. A few years ago, we had an attorney working on this. So there's a huge cost just to get to use our property the way we've been using it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I would just, obviously, if you have a lawn care business that you're entering your busy season, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do other members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have any further questions for Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad? Or Dee, if you have a question, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry. Okay, raising my hand. There it is. Yeah. Now let me lower my hand. Actually, I, in regards to what the Goodroads have said, could I ask Ann, is the reason for 6 months is a matter of because this is under enforcement? This is not just something that needs to be done, but because there's actually an ongoing enforcement, and that means every day that goes by, they're out of compliance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then so that's why an accelerated timeline as opposed to not be having an enforcement and just having something that needs to be done. This is what I'm guessing. So I hope that clarifies a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Owens, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad. Now, I'd like to turn to members of the public. If you're here present in this room and you would like to speak either in favor or opposed to this this petition, would you please raise your hand or come up to the lectern? And I see no one. So if you're online via Zoom, if you would like to speak pertaining to this case, please raise your virtual hand or press *9 on the telephone so that we can know that you would like to speak. And I don't see anyone. So I'd like to return to the Board of Zoning Appeals for any further questions of staff. I have one, and that is like, what is the level of the implications for the enforcement issue, and what is there danger to the public, et cetera?
I believe that the only complaint that we received for this case was several years back, and we haven't heard any other complaints in the area. We don't have any issues. I think the highway department condition for the right-of-way permit is just that they do make the required improvements that every county landowner has to make when they put in a new driveway. So I don't think that there's anything that's necessarily pressing. It's just a matter of trying to close out this case and move it from enforcement to compliance. And we typically, when we're in enforcement situations, give it a shorter timeline, but we understand the petitioners.
Would it be burdensome for the county to have it be open for the year that they've requested? Would it be burdensome?
I don't think, given that we've not received further complaints and there's not any kind of hazard, nothing's in the right of way or anything like that. I can't think of anything. No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Mr. Daly has a motion.
I do. I motion that the board approves the conditional use petition with the 4 recommendations that are listed and the petitioners are allowed a period that ends March 31st, 2023 to complete the conditions.
There, I'll second that. And if you would kindly call the roll.
Sure, and I'll just make a note, Dee, when you vote, if it's possible at all to turn the camera on, just so we're meeting the electronic attendance policy requirements, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's been a rough day on the internet here in the country, but yes, I'll do that.
Okay, let me just go ahead and clarify the vote. So the vote is to approve the conditional use for general contractor of chapter 802 and chapter 813 with the following conditions to be met by March 31st, 2023. One, combined lots for planning and zoning purposes as shown in the packet, the parcel numbers per chapter 804-2B4 and 813-10C17B. Record an affidavit stating that they will reside on the property full-time per chapter 813-10C17B. Complete the requirements per RW-22-65 and the petitioner meet all site plan requirements as shown in Exhibit 2 of the BZA packet. Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes,
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Goodroad, and we wish you a very successful season and good luck with meeting the conditions. And thank you for coming to speak with us tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to new business, and that the first item of new business is VAR-22-5, and this is the Smith Eco Area 2 variance to Chapter 825 concerning 5.5 plus or minus acre in Clear Creek Township, Section 11 at 3197 East Will Souders Road. And Ms. Behrman, if you would be so kind as to go over this with us.
Sure. So it is located at 3197 East Will Souders Road. The lot is 5.5 acres in size. It is zoned ag rural reserve, so it does meet minimum lot size. And it is in the environmental constraints overlay area 2 of Lake Monroe. And you can see in that location map, some of the fingers off the reservoir there. The request is a variance to chapter 825 to disturb slopes greater than 15% so that the petitioners may access their property. The disturbance would be approximately 30 feet, linear feet. And the purpose would be to establish an ingress egress like driveway to get to the site. Some site constraints that we have are utility easements and a sinkhole conservancy area that was identified. There are permits associated with a building permit listed at the bottom there and a septic permit and a driveway permit from the highway department. This is the site conditions. So you'll notice like right on the southern part of the property, East Will Souders Road, there's a red strip, and those are what we have identified as slopes greater than 15%. It's about 30 feet wide. The highway department has issued a driveway permit, or I should say a right-of-way permit, so that they could do work like right at that road entrance. But with planning's requirements and the eco overlay, you can't disturb slopes greater than 15%. So that's what the variance is ultimately for. Some other things I want to point out is there is a large utility easement that runs east-west right there through the property that you might be able to make out. And then that pink, the dark pink line is the sinkhole conservancy area that was located. A sinkhole conservancy area. Yeah, so what we do is we take the largest closed contour, which is the lighter pink. We buffer it by 25 feet according to chapter 829 of our ordinance. I could have filled in the center. I didn't fill in the center here, just it was sloppy, I guess. I don't know. These are some aerials of the site. I will point out that staff kind of looked at the driveways that run, adjacent to the property on the west side and the east side. And as I hiked all the way back to that kind of where that green pin is, you can see those houses that are set back in there. But it didn't seem feasible to request that the petitioner utilize another person's driveway and require an easement. Plus, there's that sinkhole conservancy area that's quite large that encompasses that part of the property that would have to be something you get around. So these are some of the site photos. The circle in red designates where the highway department centered the driveway on the property. And you can see that there are those steeper slopes like right next to the road there that are about 30 feet along the edge of the road. And I threw in a picture of the utility easement that runs through the property. In the packet, you'll see the petitioner's letter and also the site plan that they had submitted, which does include an erosion control plan. So they do show like where stockpiles are going to be. This was a proactive site plan that we received from the petitioner. And so they should follow this kind of stormwater prevention plan associated with the development of the site, which was helpful. And then I included on the left, you'll see the southern part where Will Souders Road is, those slopes that are kind of, restricting the access to the property are in gray along the road there. And then just them showing their site plan on the northern side of the lot. And that's on the right-hand side there. Staff is making a recommended motion for VAR -225 to approve the design standards variance for Chapter 825 for Eco 2 slope restrictions. We just felt like the driveway could not, in this case, be redesigned to avoid the 15% restricted slopes. And that even trying to utilize existing driveways on either side of the property was not a practical request for, you can't control what other, force someone to give an easement. So.
So do you have questions for staff?
How steep is the driveway? It's more than 15 feet degrees, but is it?
Yeah, it was kind of, it's tricky to pick that. I took a lot of pictures and these were the ones I thought were most applicable. I mean, I didn't do one of those slope maps that showed the severity, but I was able to just sort of take a few steps up and hike through the woods to get to the flat part of the property because the rest of the property is very flat. The contour lines here, if you're kind of taking into consideration the 50-foot stretch and envisioning a 7.5-foot drop with those 2-foot contours, it really is right at about 15%, I would say.
So it's above 15, but not much above 15?
I would, yeah.
Would that be a fair interpretation?
Yes, I would say so. Now looking at these contour lines. Mhm.
Thank you.
Can you show me where the house is going to go?
Sure. I'll probably just pull up the site plan again. So driveways, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but the
Yes.
driveway's at the south, and then they're going to run the drive all the way around the edge of that sinkhole conservancy area to put the house and the septic up.
I see. Okay.
And, staff had actually considered if it would make sense to try to push all of the development forward, but once you take into account setbacks, that utility easement that runs through the property and the sinkhole conservancy area, it didn't seem practical. Plus, the other houses in the area are all set back as well.
Mhm. Okay, and I see Ms. Owens has her hand raised.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Yes, I reviewing all this, I think this sounds like a perfectly reasonable request. The slope is, looks like it's right about at 15 or not much over. And it looks very reasonable to me. So just wanted to point out that I think that the property is not it's not a ridiculous ask. So that's all. Thanks.
Well, I'm just staring at something and I just want to talk about it. I've never seen a sinkhole that big,
Next to the lake. There are a few out in that area. I was told that the history of the site, that the person who ended up on this property had been relocated when the reservoir was originally made in the late 50s. They were relocated to this property and they ran cattle on the farm. You can tell it's kind of a second woodland. You have to wonder if it's truly a sinkhole, but I wouldn't want to second guess it because it could be. But it could have been a farm pond, but that would have been a big farm pond. It does have like brush and like a second growth forest underneath it, because you could tell at one point it had had some sort of grazing impact by what I was told was cattle, but when I was out there, it wasn't pristine woods. That's actually on the northern end of the properties where.
But how prevalent are sinkholes generally in that area?
I did not do an analysis of
Pardon me?
this. I did not do an analysis of other adjacent sinkholes in the area. But there are some areas that I can think of that are eco that also have sinkholes.
Okay.
Railtown Road has
Yes.
some. And
Okay. We're okay. Well, I'd like to turn to the public and see if the petitioner or the petitioner's representative is here. Mr. or Mrs. Smith? Oh, she's online. So if you could unmute Beth Smith. And when you do, after you're unmuted, and I'd like to swear you in.
Okay. I'm here.
Okay, can we hear you? So if you would please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Beth Smith. Thank you. So we'd like to hear from you about your petition, and you have a total of 15 minutes to make your case to us. So please, we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you. The sinkholes really kind of isn't, I don't know, I don't think it's that large or that area. It's just the district, the conservancy, to make sure that there's no issues with it, is what makes it look so large. We also did try to locate a house on the front of the property, just not to have a crazy long driveway. But we had the septic person, I can't think of his name, Jim Brown, out, and he tried twice to find some place to be able to put a septic field up front that, stayed away from all the different utility easements. And they determined that there was really only the ½ acre back there where we have the house and the garage to be located. That was about the only buildable part on the whole 5½ acres. So that's why we're trying to go in all the way back there. My surveyor said that, yes, it's a 15% grade, but we're only going through 12 feet of that, and then it starts to level off. So it's not like it's 30 feet or 50 feet of 15% grade that we're trying to go through. And I'm not sure what else you want me to tell you.
Okay, well, I'd just like to see if any members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have a question for you. Mr. Daly or Mr. Loftman, do you have any questions? Or Ms. Owens, do you have questions for the petitioner?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Smith, for appearing and making your case to us. And now I'll turn to members of the public. And if there are members of the public who are present who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to the case, please raise your hand on Zoom, or if you're here in the room, come up to the lectern and sign in. And if you are calling in by telephone, press *9 so that we know that you are calling in and that you would like to speak. So there's no one? Okay, so we come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals then for further discussion and or a motion.
I move to approve the petition.
Okay, and would you kindly make the recommended motion? I think I understand that you would like to approve the design standards variance to chapter 825 for Eco 2 slope restrictions. And that's for case number VAR-22-5. And you're recommending approval.
That's just what I was going to say.
I second that.
Okay, and if we could have.
I can go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you.
So this is on the Smith Eco Area 2 variance to chapter 825, a recommendation to approve the design standards variance, a vote, and yes is a vote to approve. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes,
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
okay.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, so we're moving on. Is this our last case already? Okay, so VAR-22-6, and this is Hutchinson Dadu, condition number 55, variance to chapter 802 concerning 122.29 plus or minus acre parcel in Richland Township, section 21 at 3223 North Thomas Road. And Ms. Crecilius, if you would take it away, as Peter used to say.
Thank you, Margaret. Enjoy the short BZA tonight because next month is looking like it's going to be kind of long.
Okay, thanks for the warning.
So this variance is a request from the detached accessory dwelling unit, condition number 55. So detached accessory dwelling unit would allow a second dwelling in certain zones. This one is zoned agricultural rural reserve. The dwelling has, the DADU permitted use allows, has some conditions, most of which are all met here except for one. That is condition number, subsection, not important, but it's overall condition number 55. It has a requirement that livable space is not to exceed 1,000 square feet. So that would not include an unfinished utility closet, a garage, so the only livable space. So this variance request was triggered by a permit application for a second residential dwelling. The property currently has one dwelling already built on it and had formerly contained a manufactured home. So overall, this is the whole site. It's 22.29 acres. Here is the petitioner's letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals and current site plan. So on their submitted site plan to the left, you can see the small existing old home with a newer home to the right that's marked as 30 by 52 with the garage. Here's an image of the interior floor plan. So this is an older pictometry of the photo. So the existing home is towards the bottom and the manufactured homes which have been removed are to the north. So this is how the site currently looks. So the petitioner is requesting that the second dwelling has a livable space of 1,560 square feet. So a variance would be required in order to approve this, approve a DADU of that size. Somewhat of a unique situation for this property is that the existing home would be small enough to be permitted as a DADU, except one of the conditions of the DADU, condition 55, is that it must meet current standards of the residential building, mechanical, electrical, energy, and environmentally critical area codes. The building department weighed in on this situation and they determined that really they would be unable to prove that the existing home would be able to meet those codes. So the petitioner has chosen to pursue the new home as being permitted as that DADU, the detached accessory dwelling unit. So on the top left of the screen is the existing home. I believe it was built in the 1950s.
That's cute.
Yeah. So there were some requirements along North Thomas Road for the right-of-way permit, and not necessarily a factor for this variance request, but the right-of-way permit does have a condition to move that driveway to a safer entrance, kind of more towards the hill that we see on the left side photo. One of the conditions of the DADU is to have a shared driveway. So they will be removing one driveway, moving it for a better sight distance per the highway permit. And then using that as the main entrance for both homes. So this is the site where they are proposing the new DADU. This is where the two manufactured homes were originally placed. So back in December, there was originally a sliding scale subdivision that was submitted for this property for the 22 acres. They had proposed to create 3 lots. The property was partially in FEMA floodplain. This was done through Deckard Land Surveying. So sometime in February, all of the petitioner changed routes, and they withdrew their application to create 2 additional lots, 2 additional buildable lots. So, one moment. So staff recommendation is to recommend denial for this variance request of the detached accessory dwelling unit, condition 55 of 1,000 square feet of livable space due to self-created practical difficulties. If the petitioner had pursued the 3 lot sliding scale, the configuration could have been changed to, accommodate even the plan that they have now, which would not have had any kind of conditions of livable space on the property. It would have been the preliminary plat that was submitted was a by right subdivision. It did have a buried utilities waiver request that would have been a plat committee approval or denial. So why the petitioner changed course, we're unsure. That's with the surveyor, but this would have created a new buildable lot, and this variance would not have been needed for a second dwelling. Does the board have any questions?
Do you have any questions, Mr. Loftman, Mr. Daly, or Ms. Owens has her hand raised?
Yes, I do. And really, you just answered it. My question is, why in the world would you do this, which is more likely to be denied than the sliding scale? So perhaps I'll wait to ask that of the owner.
Okay. Do you have any initial response to Ms. Owens' question, though?
No, I mean, I would love to hear. I really was communicating solely with Eric Deckard with Deckard Land
I
Surveying.
see. Okay.
I would like to reserve the right to ask a couple questions after I hear
Sure.
what the petitioner has to say.
Sure. And in fact, that's something I'll always do after the public has spoken and the petitioner has spoken. We turn it back to us for any last questions or discussion, because
Great policy.
Okay, so I'd like to turn it to the petitioner to see if the petitioner is here or the petitioner's representative, either, oh, hello. If you would come in and sign in. You must be Lisa. Oh, it's nice to meet you. And would you please raise your right hand and say your name and that you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My name is Lisa Hutcherson, and I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we'd like to hear from you and about your petition, and
Sure.
you have 15 minutes to tell us what we need to know.
Okay, well, this has been a long process for us. I will say, you did have a question. I'll just start with the survey. My husband contacted the surveyor and I was doing everything else and there was a miscommunication. We really just wanted our property surveyed for our own use. I was not aware that it was that he made a subdivision until after we were submitting all of our things. And then all of a sudden I had all these permits and it was kind of crazy and I didn't know what was happening. So I talked to the surveyor and he tried to explain it to me and it didn't make any sense to me. And then I contacted the health department because there was like sewer permits and this is really confusing. I'm sorry. I probably feel like I'm talking in circles because I'm really nervous.
Oh, that's okay. Just take your time.
But it was just a miscommunication with the surveyor. We never wanted our property subdivided. I think he may have suggested that to my husband to subdivide it for future, but like we have no intention of dividing that property and selling it. We want to keep it as a whole property. We wanted to build a home because this.
Oh, it's okay. Just take your time.
So if we did go ahead and proceed with the easy route and do the subdivision and build the house on that second plot. My mom lives in the small house.
Mhm.
We want to move there so I can take care of her. So I don't want to be farther away. I want to be right there. It's just a perfect area. My great grandparents owned that property. There was 3 families living on that property at one time, you know, for several years. I'm not sure how to explain, you know, why we wanted to do that. I mean, our whole initial thing was to have my mom's house as or our house that my mom lives in as the dadu and build a new home, but obviously we couldn't meet those conditions. And then, like I said, the survey just kind of threw a whole kink into it that I wasn't even prepared for because that's not what we wanted to do.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that even kind of explains everything in a roundabout way.
I think it does. I think it does that you wanted to keep the property integral as one property and that you wanted that detached accessory dwelling unit for your mother so that you could care for her. And your intention is to keep the property whole.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and not only that, but even, you know, after all that happened, looking at it, that second plot, it's all woods. The only open area is there towards the road front and it's all woods and we don't want to damage the integrity of the woodlands right there. It's a big karst area. There's sinkholes. You know, there's a lot of wildlife on our property. I mean, yeah, it's a big property.
22 acres, right? I mean, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's the only property on Thomas Road that connects to Loudon Road.
Oh, that's very nice.
And we just wanted to keep it as it is.
Sure.
So,
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn to the other members of the Board of Zoning Appeals to see if they have questions for you. Mr. Daly, Mr. Loftman, or Ms. Owens. Ms. Owens has her hand raised, so we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lisa, the difference of an imaginary line of a sliding scale would not alter your plans to take care of your mother in any way that I can see. I'm trying to understand why you think that that's not a solution that works for you, because it actually, it doesn't make any difference. You still have the property. You still, you could build the house without recourse, other than the other rules you have to follow to build a house. So I still don't understand why that is a deal for you.
well, the reason why is because we would be building quite a distance away from where her home is instead of next to it, like right next to it. Do you have the subdivision
The staff,
survey that he submitted?
the staff will bring it up onto the screen here. And
Mhm.
And we also didn't want to have to clear a bunch of woods and things like that. And, you know, we wanted to preserve our woodlands there.
They kind of want the accessory unit to be close to the mothership, so to speak.
It sounds as though if all parties had been on the same page, a design could have been accommodated to get there. But I think sounds like there's been a lot of miscommunication.
Oh, most definitely.
Agree. That's what I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Do other members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have any further questions?
Let me just, I think I understand, and let me just make sure.
Sure.
If with your proposal, you can place the houses where you want them. With the sliding scale subdivision, the new house would be farther away from the old house than you
It
want.
would be considerably farther away.
A
And
good
we
deal.
would have to tear the woods down, and like, that was never our intention in even getting a survey. We just did the survey for our own,
Right.
we want to know
Right.
where our property lines were.
And will your mother live in the smaller house?
She currently does, yes.
She already
lives-
does, and you
Mhm.
want to build this additional house so you can be close to her.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would-
Thank you.
I would like to ask a quick
Yes.
question. I would actually like to ask staff, but perhaps have a follow-up while you're still at the mic, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This question is for Mr. Schilling, actually. I understand the law. If it were 998 square foot house they are preparing to build, it would fall under the law. Is that correct?
If it were 998, yes.
Yes, all right, all right. So I understand what the law is. What's the rationale for that law? And why would the extra 500 square feet that they're proposing violate the county?
I think the rationale for the law would be that the intent was to have sort of a primary residence and a smaller accessory residence, so that there weren't two, large dwellings on one lot.
But in essence, that's what they're doing. They're just kind of looking to shift. And we're finding that the existing structure would not meet the code. Is that what this is all about? Because the existing structure would not meet the current code in order to classify it. So in order for us to call it something else, they would need to upgrade everything for this home that's been there and been fine for habitation for all these years. Is that correct?
That's the testimony, yes.
All right. Sounds like some bureaucracy to me. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
I don't have a follow-up now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have, how big is the existing house?
It is, I believe, around 800 square feet.
So you would end up with a house under 1,000 square feet and a house over 1,000 square feet, but they're being built in the wrong order.
That's right.
Pretty much, I
Okay.
guess you could say.
And the old one doesn't meet some standard, but I don't understand what standard it doesn't meet, but that's. You can help me out, Skip?
No, yeah. So to reclassify it, it wouldn't meet the standard, but it's still deemed habitational. So
Okay.
yeah, your confusion is probably the same as me
Okay.
throwing my hands in the air.
This is why we exist. And so I would just like to turn to members of the public then and see if there are any members of the public who would like to speak either in favor or in opposition to this petition. And if you're, I don't think I see anyone here who would, oh, great, okay, please come back. Oh, you have to come back up and you're already sworn in, so. Yeah, but she doesn't have to be sworn in again.
When was the law made for the 1,000 square feet. I'm sure that that was considered a small home back in the day, but today 1,500 square feet is a small home.
Mhm.
I am in real estate, so I know that's a small home.
Oh.
Maybe 100 years ago, 1,000 square feet seemed like a big home, but I think you kind of have to take into account when these laws are written, and sometimes they become outdated.
Thank you, Ms. Goodroad. Thank you. And I'd like to just see if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak in favor or in opposition. Or if you're online, please raise your hand or press *9 on the telephone to let us know that you would like to speak. And I don't see anyone. And do you see anyone? I come back then to the Board of Zoning Appeals for any further questions, discussion, or deliberation, or a motion.
I'm inclined to make a motion on case.
Could I just make one comment before
Oh,
we do
please
that?
do.
Well, it just seems to me that the values expressed are, first of all, noble. They don't want to, they want to protect more of the forest, and they want, and that's zoned agricultural forest, rural reserve, farm and forest, and that their intentions for their property seem to be in line with the values that we espouse as a county. And also the whole purpose of a detached accessory dwelling unit. And the reason why that rule was passed, that you're trying your best to take advantage of it for exactly these familial purposes. And I would just like to say to my fellow colleagues that I, those are my insights. That's all.
Yeah, my hand's up as well.
Oh, great, Dee.
Thank you. I'll take it down there. The survey that has the 3-lot sliding scale, is it not just can't the survey be changed so that the house, so it's split, so the imaginary line allows them to build where the mobile homes were? That can't be done?
Hi,
So
Dee.
there's not enough road frontage,
I'm sorry, say again?
right?
The road frontage is more than 400 feet, which is more than the 200-foot requirement for agricultural rural reserve lots. I do believe that a design could have been accommodated.
Yeah, okay, and that's my question. I mean, if you take that survey and you just mark the line to then meet the 200-foot road frontage, then you've got sliding scale and problem solved. Right?
Well, it's so small that I can't see it now, that the surveyor said it is not 400 feet.
We're going to double check.
Thank you.
Well, while we're checking that, it seems to me if you can do it way A or way B, and it seems subdivisions encourage
Yes.
building more houses in the
Yes.
country where frankly, my rule of thumb is fewer houses is better. So if I can accomplish the same goal without subdividing and having more, the petitioner's goal,
Yes.
without creating smaller lots in the country, I'm prone to like that and not even go back to the surveyor who doesn't understand what you want is always I know that would be another X dollars that I'm, so I guess is there any substantive basic reason I'm missing as to why we can't just let her have her way and
Well,
still?
I'm
Yes.
going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt because I believe that the staff already has a pending question that they need to answer and then.
Oh, thank
can
you.
get
Yeah,
back to
well
you.
done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the plan does state that the width is under 400. So that would mean that you wouldn't be able to have two lots in the front. You would have to build farther back. So Mrs. Hutcherson is right, that where they want that home placed would not be able to be done with the sliding
see.
scale subdivision.
Okay, and then follow up to that, as it says right here on everyone's screen, the law says that the board must find favorable findings for all three criteria, A, B, and C. Okay, so can you repeat again what those are so that we are ensured that we are having favorable findings for all three?
It's practical
Yeah, Dee, let
difficulties.
me go ahead
After
and pull
the
that up for
agenda.
just a second.
It's not there. It's not there. It's practical difficulties.
So. We'll get them up there, I'm sure.
Pardon?
They'll get them up there, I'm sure.
Yeah. You may sit down if you wish, you know. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read A, B, and C into the record. So A is the approval, including any conditions or commitments deemed appropriate, will not be injurious to public health, safety, and general welfare of the community because, and then there are 4 subsection parts to that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if Ann,
Okay.
yeah, okay. So that you can read it along with me. Okay. So number 1 is it would not impair the stability of a natural or scenic area. Number 2, it would not interfere with or make more dangerous, difficult, or costly the use, installation, or maintenance of existing or planned transportation utility facilities. Number 3, the character of the property included in the variance would not be altered in a manner that substantially departs from the characteristics sought to be achieved and maintained within the relevant zoning district. That is, the approval singularly or in concert with other approvals sought or granted would not result in the development profile, height, bulk, density, and area associated with a more intense zoning district and thus effectively rezone the property. And it would adequately address any other significant public health, safety, and welfare concerns raised during the hearing on the requested variance. B, the approval, including any conditions or commitments deemed appropriate, would not affect the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including in the variance in a substantially adverse manner. And we have subsection 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, the specific purposes of the design standards sought to be varied would be satisfied. Number 2, it would not promote conditions on-site or off-site detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the area. And it would adequately address any other significant property use and property value concerns raised during the hearing on the requested variance. And C, the approval, including any conditions or commitments deemed appropriate, is the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties in the use of the property, which would otherwise result from a strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you very much. That's we got at least 2 lawyers in the room. On that last one, that's kind of lawyer speak. To be, sorry, guys, sorry, Dave. Including any conditions or commitments deemed appropriate is the minimum variance necessary to eliminate practical difficulties in use of the property. What does that mean, really? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
In this case, to me, it means that the minimum that we do is allow her to build rather than make her subdivide. That's the minimum that we do. We approve it.
Mhm. It's
In
the
order-
least restrictive then as far as the property owner goes, in essence. Okay.
And that as such, and also, to me, her proposal goes a long way toward not impairing the stability of the natural area. And
Mhm.
also, it does not affect the use and value of the area adjacent to the property. And that, well, I guess I should just make that a motion, right? You do it. Yeah, great.
All right. All right, and the case number Victor Alpha Romeo -22-6. With all due respect to the work of the planning department and their recommended denial, we are a human board, and I think reason and rationale need to be a part of our decisions. Finding no public health, public safety, or environmental concerns, I motion that we approve the petitioner.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the Hutcherson Dadu condition number 55 variance to chapter 802, which is the 1,000 square foot limitation. A vote yes is to a vote to approve the variance. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
D Owens.
Yes.
Okay, and D, can you turn your camera on just for a sec while you said yes?
Sorry, it worked. Okay.
Yes, okay, thank you. Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Skip Daly?
Yes.
All right, and the motion carries 4-0 to approve the variance.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hutcherson, and we just hope your mother's health is, is stable, and that your good care continues, and that you all have peace and comfort. Thank you. Thank you. So is there any further, anything further to discuss here? Anything that the staff would like us to know, or have we done it all tonight?
Yeah, I guess for anyone listening, if they are interested in applying to be on the Board of Zoning Appeals, we do currently have a vacancy. I believe Mary Beth's was a commissioner's appointment, so we will make that announcement as well at the commissioners meeting.
Okay. So thank you, everyone, for your good work tonight, and thank you to the public for showing up and talking with us about your real concerns. Thank you. Is there?
Thank you.
Adjourn? No.
Oh, motion.
I
So
move
moved.
adjourn.
Okay, any objections? Okay. Have a good evening, everyone.